I was angry, not because the homework wasn't done. I was angry because he lied. You know, I was more disappointed about that.
Even if as parents we are only human.
The growing up years of your child definitely cannot wait.
Hi everyone and welcome to Canteen Chats. If you're parenting a twin today, you might feel like the rules have changed because they have. Our children are growing up in a digital world that shapes how they think, feel, and react long before they are emotionally ready. To explore this, we're joined by a school principal. We have with us Feng from Qihua Primary School. We have the founder of CheekyMonkey.net, Kelvin Ang, and Senior Lead Counselor and Family Therapist Joy Ong Shu Xin. Welcome to Canteen Chats. Joy, why do you think twin years are special?
Actually, there's a lot going on for a child turning into a teenager in that tween phase. And for us on the outside, it might look like quiet and on the background, but actually there's a lot of things going on internally. So what we are referring to is the emotional growth. What do I want for myself in the future? Some of our tweens even ask themselves, who am I? What do I want to be? Identity type of questions. So a lot of such things are developing, but the language is not catching up sometimes in terms of how I, put a name to the feelings. There are a lot of developmental changes. Yeah. So the young person, the teenagers, they are, not just only developmenting in terms of the physical parts, the puberty or pubertal changes, hormone changes as well, and then changes in their sleep patterns, there's also the social part, my friends are doing certain things, I also want to do certain things. I want to hang out with my friends and not just only go to school and come home. There are also the other parts and aspects of things about, developmentally in terms of their mind, cognitively. So actually there are a lot of changes going on. And how can parents support better?
Right. So touching on that, my son, he keeps to himself a lot. And I always worry that he's not opening up with me or his parents. But my daughter, on the other hand, she's 14 and she tells me everything. So what is the approach that I should, based on your experience, Kelvin, do you approach your child if they are too quiet?
Actually, what you shared is true with
yours
in my
as well.
household as well. And I think we as parents also must learn to accept that for these kind of problems, I think they probably want to confide in their friends first rather than parents. So I think it is, like what Joy has mentioned just now, is a lot of things that I think they're still trying to find their feet. And sometimes we as parents, we might misunderstand them as being rebellious, but actually it's actually a case of them trying to find their own way and sort out their actions and thinkings.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Twins are exposed to a lot nowadays, especially online, but they may not be able to process them maturely. So, Feng, you said before that home can be the most dangerous place if the child has access to the internet. Why is that so?
Today, with the internet access, right, we do not know who our children have brought home once the internet is connected, right? So, for example, we have children who play Roblox, and when they play with people outside, and they may assume, or the person may claim that he's 13 years old, but it may end up to be somebody older, right? And other than just the impact of a gaming, but we are also concerned about the information that they access. It is beyond the control of the parents.
Correct.
Because especially when they're accessing this on their own, the information that they receive every day will shape the life of our children.
Kelvin, have you heard of any examples of children encountering something too big too soon?
It happened to my daughter when she was in primary school. She was playing Roblox. So I think because Roblox is one massive open gaming world, right? So you can just go to different rooms to try out different games. So there was one instant, and then she came to share with us after that, once she entered the room, that this room is actually you could see the avatars, characters, they're engaging in sexual activities. Yeah, so it's a good thing that she came to talk. To tell me and my wife. So obviously we had a good talk with her and told her why this is inappropriate. So one thing I've learned after having 3 kids pass through the tween age phase is you also have to enter their world.
Yes.
and especially so in this world where they are actually playing different sort of games. See, I don't think gaming just applies to boys, but girls, they also play kind of like Roblox or Minecraft. They also do play that. So I think, from when my kids were in upper primary, whatever games they play, I make sure to download onto my phone, and I also create an account and I play as well.
Join them.
Yes, so I join them. So I know exactly. Because when they talk about it, like how to mine certain stuff, then I know what they're talking about.
Right.
So I think it's essential for parents to actually step into the world, be involved, and to understand exactly what is going on. And it was actually through that then I realized that actually when you play Roblox, you actually can turn off the chat box. So I'm able to ask my daughter to also, you also could turn it off and just focus on playing the game.
I see. Yeah. So Joy, have you ever come across a case where children have problems because of gaming?
Yes, definitely. And we do have quite a number of cases. It could be boys, it could be girls. But with gaming itself, I think it's also quite worrying because it could actually affect them in terms of, how long that they are playing. If there's no proper limit set, they can even get into a state where I just want to keep gaming. I don't want to do my work. I don't even want to step out of the house. If we are giving them the devices and we are allowing them to have the game time, then we have to make sure that we set proper rules around it. We will tell the children and the tweens that if you want to play your games, you have to do what you need to do first.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a non-negotiable. So they learn, I need to finish whatever I need to do, my tasks, my schoolwork, then I will play my game. The other thing that we looked into for parents and we find it very helpful is to set areas or limits for screen. So it could be by zones, like no screens at the dinner table. Okay, because dinner table is a place where we can have communication, we eat, we chit chat, and we know about each other's day. It could be zones like bedroom. We don't allow them to bring their phones into places where we can't see. I think it's important that parents discuss with each other. What are we having in mind? What are the rules, so that both sides, parents or caregivers, we give the same rules and we don't confuse the child.
Yeah. In fact, right, we advise parents, to get the tweens to agree before when we give them the phone, is to charge their phone in the parents' room at night. Some of them sleep in their own room, they sleep together as siblings, right? So at night, are they really sleeping or are they playing?
Yes.
So I think like what Joy said, I think it is important we set the expectation, or we agree first. We tell them, okay, this is what you want. I understand, but you must be responsible.
I give you a phone, but I have to know all your passwords. And that is the understanding that we have with each other, which is really great. Till now, it's been really great. And I can check their phones anytime, Yeah, but they are also very honest with me. If they find something off online, they'll be sharing with me. And I think it's great if your child can come to you and share with you whatever nonsense they see online. I think there's the trust there as well.
Actually, I think Nurul, you will be the ideal parent that we hope to see, right? So, in fact, we advise parents, we tell the parents, if you can delay giving the child's handphone, please delay, right? But we know sometimes parents have to give them handphone, like, to monitor whether the child's home and so on, right? So we share parents, actually, please come up with the agreement, negotiate with the child first. And we have to be a bit more proactive, because no matter how the parents control, right, how we advise the kids, okay, we want to be a bit more proactive. So in fact, in school, cyber wellness is taught in FTGP, is covered by the ICT department, and we want to make sure that children are aware, right? They are aware what are the potential danger, right? And how to protect themselves. Don't share your password, okay? Don't share information with strangers, okay? Be very mindful about interacting with, especially on certain platform. Okay, so I think this is what we can guide the children, okay? So that from young, really from primary 2, 3, lower primary onwards, we started about cyber wellness because of that password and information. For the older one, we advise them more on interaction okay, on the social media and the use of social media.
Right.
You know, we always say that kindness must be in the cyber world as well, okay, so that they can be encouraging others through the social media. Actually, the media is not wrong. It's just that how do we use it?
Yeah.
But I want to add also that actually when you give your child a phone during the tween age years, right? They actually should, by right, they shouldn't have a social media account at all.
That's true.
Because if you follow
Yes.
strictly by the age restriction, right, it should be 13 years old, right?
Yes.
So I think that should be a non-negotiable, right? You can give a phone for contact purposes, for WhatsApp, or just to check things, look up info on the internet. But social media-wise, you shouldn't allow your child to create an account before he or she turns 13. And I've done that because my daughter wanted an IG account, but I passed her a phone when she was P6 lah. So, but because her birthday was in October, so she had to wait until most of her Sec 1 life has been over when she reached October. Then finally, I allowed her to create an IG account.
I see.
So I think she still bear a grudge lah. because my eldest son is his birthday in January. So she's like, how come Koko, January got IG account, but I have to wait until October. So I think it's important to set some really firm but basic ground rules when it comes to phone usage or when you pass the phone to your child. Yeah.
Okay, so one thing that many of us parents face is we tend to confront our child a bit too soon. Guilty of that when things don't go as planned. Here's a short clip that shows that. Let's watch this video.
You have a few minutes to get ready, go and shower, go and eat. Mr. Claude is coming very soon. Nabila Reza, are you listening to me? I am very busy with Haris. Please show some independence and get your things done. What is going on?
Stop it! Stop yelling at me, okay? Stop nagging at me.
What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with me? Everything. But what do you care?
You do not talk to me like
You
that.
shouted at me first.
Did something happen in school?
Nothing. Nothing, okay? Not that you care. Just go and take care of your precious Haris.
Ooh. Wow, I remember that scene. Maybe might be familiar to some people. Okay, so what happened in there? How can both parties de-escalate the situation? Has that ever happened before?
Yeah, when my second son was I think he was 10 or 11 years old, there was a moment where I think he threw something at the ceiling lah. So I think that it dirtied the ceiling lah. So at that time, I think something snapped lah in me. So what I did was I actually wanted to carry him up, but only using his t-shirt. Yeah. So but because he was quite big then, so as I tried to lift him up via the t-shirt tore. So practically it's as if like I ripped open his shirt lah. Yeah, so that is something that stuck actually with him.
How old was he then?
I think 10 or 11. Yeah, so and then I think and his siblings were around also. So they also remembered how angry I looked and sounded, and of course when they mentioned a few years back, we all just like laugh a bit lah. But I actually, to be honest, I didn't expect him to remember it so vividly. Not just remember, but vividly, like actually remember like the process, what I scolded him for, things like that. Yeah. So looking back, of course, this is one of the many things that I wish that I could have done differently when they were younger. Yeah. But now, of course, now I don't blow my top. I mean, what I tell myself is always, I just step away for a minute, or I just count to 10 or take deep breaths. I think that little transition helps.
Yeah, so I actually experienced the same thing. So when my son was 5, so I put him in enrichment classes, and there were a few enrichment classes that I put him into, and he has always been really honest, and he never lied to me. So every time I ask him, have you done your homework? He's like, yes. And one day I was cleaning up and I found piles and piles of homework hidden underneath in the drawer, deep inside the drawer, and it was all homework that was not done. I got so angry. I went to him and I straight away hit I hit him. And I remember he was wearing a racerback singlet, so his shoulders was exposed. And I asked him, why did you lie? Why did you lie? When I noticed the mark on the back of his shoulder, it was my 5 fingers there. And that's when I realized. And I just went away to my room, closed the door, and just like cried it out. And I was angry, not because the homework wasn't done. I was angry because he lied. You know, I was more disappointed about that. And I felt really bad. So I called my husband. I was like, you need to calm down and go and ask him, is he okay? What's happening? You know, because he never lied. So I asked him what's going on. And he told me, Mommy, it's too much. There's too much that I'm doing every day. Can you take me out one of the enrichment class? And that's when it just, oh my God, now I feel like crying talking about it. And that's when I realized that, oh my gosh, I'm pushing my child so much, you know. Up till today, he remembers that. And it's just so sad that, oh, you know, we've been to holidays and all that, but that one traumatic experience, he remembers that. And I just want to emphasize how important it is to actually not lose our cool so easily. As parents, we get angry, we get triggered so easily, but then it's so important to actually also listen to them. Yeah. Oh my God.
And also to apologize lah, because this is what I did after that as well. I got my whole family sit down together and I apologized.
I did that as well. So I apologize, and I think most parents, you know, it happens to most parents as well.
Yes. It's tough, and I think it's important first to acknowledge that even if as parents we are only human, right? I think that's so important to realize that we are only human. We will have our feelings. We will have the anger that comes up, but what matters most is what do we do after. So, for instance, if I've hit the child, or for instance, if I've grabbed the child, then what do I do after the incident? Like you all mentioned earlier on, you know, making repairs. And I think it's so important that when, for example, we make a mistake, we must not stand on the position that, oh, I'm the parent, I do not apologize. Because the child will not only just see that, oh, you're the parent, you don't apologize. The child might even learn that it's okay not to apologize, for example. That's one. And second thing, I think it's so important that when we are making repairs, we are trying to rebuild the relationship. And that might even include sitting them down, right? And really having a conversation, not when we are both actively angry. Because then nothing goes in. And then I will feel like, hey, she's not listening to me, or he is not listening to me. And then I get even angrier because we're not at the right moment and the right space. So perhaps it's also important that, you know, at this moment where it's very high tension, we need to calm down first. Like, for example, go to the room, I de-escalate myself, or I have a partner that steps in to take over, for example. And that's okay. We take turns, right? But we also need to be able to calm the tween down. I might just say, even if you don't want to talk right now, I just want to sit by your side. And we're sending a message. It's okay if you don't want to talk. I'm willing and I want to be here. That no matter what you're going through, I want to be by your side. And when you're ready, you know, you can open up and share with me. I think we might have our little repair things that we do with our child, but that's so important. We remember what they like, we try to reconnect with them, but we don't skirt the important topic. We also must remember to throw the ball back into their court, which is to ask them, so how do you feel? Sometimes I share with my parents, there's a very useful tip. We will create a little card, especially for tweens. If it's a tweens parent, we'll create a little card for the parents, or we ask the parents to create a card for themselves. If you come to me with this card, Mommy or Daddy promise you, I will not scold. I will listen first.
Oh, that's great.
So it's a very visual, but very concrete item, especially for a tween's face. They need something that's very concrete.
You make them feel very important too, I think. Yes. Wow, I think that's very powerful. Connection before correction. So ideally, of course, children feel safe opening up at home, but there will be moments when a tween might not be ready to talk to a parent yet. How have schools supported students with strained relationships with their parents?
So we will see the parents, because we need to be the bridge between the child and the parent. Because we know, right, most of the time, if the relationship don't get patched up, then the bigger issues might surface moving forward. So we engage the parents, so allow the parents to understand the child, what is affecting the child. Okay, we remind the parents, right, what the child is doing. Maybe we all don't agree, but we cannot condemn the child, right? We also tell parents, right, even if the child has made big mistake, assure the child that we will go through this together. Yeah, I think if the child knows I can make mistake, I know after, sometimes they don't share with the parents because they are so afraid that they're rejected by the parents after that. The parents don't love them anymore. But if the parents can assure them, yes, I think what you did is not nice, it's not kind, but you're still my child.
Yeah.
I love you. Okay, I will walk through this together and we will see what can we do this together.
Yeah.
I have a parent, the child has to make apology to the neighbor, right? And we told the parent, the teachers are going with the child to make the apology. You know what the daddy said? When are you going? I want to go with my child because I want to go with my child to apologize together.
Right.
Yes.
And because the dad said that, the mom said, I will also go. I take leave and go. So I think that is so powerful for the child. They know that my parents will not abandon
You're
me.
not alone.
Yes.
You're not.
There's only so much the schools can do, right?
Yes.
But ultimately, I think the child spends most of his time, at least during the primary school years, at home rather than outside. So personally, I feel it's very important that parents work together with schools, with whatever that is being taught or what is being distilled down from the teachers, and also so you can reinforce it at home as well. But one thing that I've learned, since now all my kids are much older, is the role modeling. It's really you must how you wish your child to turn out is actually how you should be in the first place. Because there are so many times now that my wife tell me, my eldest son, hey, how come he say like that? Then after I think, oh wait, actually he sounds just like me, or he thinks or he acts just like me. So it's really, I don't know whether it's karma lah, but but it's really how we act or even how we say or how we feel.
They mirror us.
Yeah, they mirror it, and they don't listen to what we tell them to do. They just see, observe, and then they do what we do.
Absorb, right?
Yes, correct. So I think that is very, very important point to always take note, especially if your kids are now just in the primary school phase. They're still being molded. So it's very important to always keep that in mind lah.
Yeah. And I think maybe as parents, what we can do is to encourage our children to hang out with friends more. Maybe invite friends over. I think like you mentioned earlier, get to know their friends. And I realized that when my children bring their friends over and we sit down together, we have lunch with them, it's actually a nice time to know like who they're hanging out with, who they're talking to.
And the friends know you.
Yes.
And then they will feel like, we can have conversations.
Yes.
Hey, your mom is so cool. Can you go join the conversation? and everybody hangs out. And that allows for the space for children to have in-person relationship.
Okay, so that means I'm doing something right lah, because when my kids were younger, they're in primary school, what my wife and I did was we actually invite their friends over, and it's useful because not only do they bond and I get to know their friends and their friends also get to know us, but also because through their interactions, right? Not because I'm an eavesdrop lah, but I can pick up certain things that they mention amongst themselves. So a lot of times, as you know lah, our kids most probably they portray a side of them at home and they portray a different side in school, right? So it's through that then able to find, hey, actually, or my son or my daughter actually things like that or speaks like that or so a lot of things a lot of small little details that we pick up, and then we are able to build it on that when we are having conversations with them after the friends have left. And also sometimes for tweens or teens, they like it when parents look dumb. So they like it when we act dumb. So we like, hey, actually this one, like, what is this? Or I don't know. Well, then they will suddenly, hey, what you don't know? So I teach you. But it is through that we encourage them to tell us more, communicate more, and So never mind, we act dumb. It's okay.
It's okay. But now they know already we act. They're going to watch this episode and say, oh, mommy, you actually act dumb. Okay, so at this current moment, tweens are encountering vices earlier and earlier, like, for example, vapes. And I want to know how we build relationships where a child feels safe enough to say, oh, mommy, this happened today, before things get really bad. Maybe Joy.
Yeah, I think it's so important to build up this connection with our children. So it's so important that within the home setting, or especially for parents ourselves, to be mindful that when a child comes to us, our first and foremost most important thing is we should not first start off with scolding. Because that scolding will just send them into what we call a fight-flight mode situation, or even freeze mode, where, for example, if they talk about vaping, then we haven't even shared about the conversation much, and I already started scolding and say, no, you should not vape, don't think about vape, don't even think about that, don't even go there. Then we cut off the conversation there. So it's so important that we allow for the child to share with us, what's going on? When you say you heard about vapes, or your friends are doing vapes, or they are talking about vapes, then what do you mean? Tell me more. So we are using open-ended question. We are encouraging them to tell us more, and we want to hear more first.
Right.
And that's the first part. And I think it's so important where we also want to find out about what they are thinking. So I don't just only want to know the content, like what my friends say or what their friends say, but I want to know, so what are you thinking about? What are you feeling? So when your friend asks you to vape or try out, how do you feel? When you had to say no, how do you feel?
Yeah.
What was it for you? And we talk about this, and then so we allow for conversations, and these are very powerful social emotional moments where we allow them to grow also. That I encounter something, I can come back, I can have the conversation with my parents, and it's like a safe space where I can always have a bouncing board.
So, if you could leave parents with one advice to hold on to during the tween years, what would it be?
I think love is powerful, right? Especially unconditional love, right? If we can spend time to build relationship during peacetime, I think during during the downtime, okay, we know that the child knows that we are still there. Yeah, I think that is really assuring, for the child. Yeah.
I think that email can wait, that WhatsApp message reply can wait, but the growing up years of your child definitely cannot wait. So you have to seize that moment and be in that moment with your child before he or she grows up.
Yeah, so connection before correction is really important, and I think it's so important that we are mindful to create opportunities to connect with our children. So for example, dinner table can be a really great time to have moments together, to connect, asking each other about how's your day, who are your friends, who are you playing with. And so it's important that, when we are trying to connect with our children, our teenagers, during those moments, so we create opportunities by asking questions and to lead them and allow them to have like little moments to share. And from there, we can find out more beyond just only schoolwork and school tasks or things that they need to do.
Thank you so much once again for your time and your beautiful insights. I hope those who are watching will learn a thing or two. Today's tweens are growing up in a different world from ours. They experience stress differently and they need our understanding. Safe spaces and trustworthy adults are crucial. When parents listen, stay present, and respond without judgment, trust is built. Because when children feel safe to talk, they are far more likely to let us help them navigate this world. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe and share. Follow us for more episodes of Canteen Chats, where we'll explore big questions about education, parenting, and more. Thanks for watching Canteen Chats. I'll see you next time. Bye.